Welcome back, everybody, to another bloody Regal Tails episode. Jesus, this is from 50 to 100 real quick. Damn, this is real. Prom turned away and headed back towards the hilltop, but was met with a sense of weightlessness. He felt a harsh sense of gravity as his back was slammed to the ground. His shoulders were pinned down by the raging lioness. Naja felt a surge of energy that had laid dormant inside her, roar to life in her. Dormant inside her. Her roar to life in her. Wait, what? Laid dormant inside her. Her roar to life in her. The mere mention of her family was what unleashed her renewed strength. Throughout the petrified horrors she beheld, how could she have forgotten the one thing that mattered most to her? Mijina. She pinned the bear down by the neck and hissed out. "Where is she?" "Where's Rachel?" The German's face flared up with rage, spite, and desperation for air while clawing at Naya's arm. How could he be mad? I'd be like pissing my pants, bro. Naya leaned her maw down, fangs hovering inches away from the bear's eyes. She crackled out a bloody growl. "There was a lion cub in my camp, so help you. If anything happened to her, I'll..." A commotion of heavily armored knights stampeded over her to aid their fallen general. Arrows and spears aimed at the lioness. Naya, blind in her own maternal frenzy, growled with the malice in her eyes. She was more than ready to tear through this army to see her daughter. She felt a dense thud against her forearm. General Crom tapped frantically against her as his face turned shades of blue. He lightly loosened her grip on his neck. "Tell me." Crom batted at her arm to get air in his lungs once more. He gasped out. We saw a little girl run into the enemy camp. We've yet to find her." Naya bared her talons back down to his fat throat. Her eyes intensified with a snarling at the bear. Okay, if this is real and not some kind of fucking, vision, and this is actually real, if it is, it's in Naya's camp that they knew, or there were more spies, or as I said, betrayal happened here. Which way did you see her go? Crom didn't respond. He was too occupied trying to lift Naya's arm off his throat. "Anyone?" They all staggered back at the traumatizing roar Naya let out. The majority of them pointed north of the encampment, with only a few stragglers pointing in random directions that were unaware of the situation. She snapped to her feet and darted north. She paid no mind to who was in her way or what Crom was shouting to her as she left him on his back. Naya was on the prowl to find her daughter. I would have killed Crom, not gonna lie. I hate the dude. Naya stormed throughout the burning ruins of the Imperial camp. Nosep knights scavenged throughout the camp for whatever wasn't burned. Often they would cluster together and block Naya's path. She broke through their lines, never giving them time to respond. Her eyes spun in every direction, seeking out any clue as to where her daughter went. She could barely keep her head on straight, with fear irking its way into her mind. How could the Empire betray their agreement? How could her people fall this easily? Why did Mijina rush into the Imperial camp? To avenge me? The train of thoughts circled around her head endlessly. They clouded her mind to the point she began to take comfort in thinking about the issues rather than see them before her. Every passing step she took, she had witnessed more and more of her men laid to waste alongside Imperials. She couldn't process the sight of them anymore. Her focus was on her family. Her own world was in danger, and she needed to keep it safe. "Mijina! Mijina, sweetie! Mommy's here! Please, come out! You're safe here with me!" Naya clutched her gut once more. Her burning surroundings left the sword in her blistering with heat now. Her breathing became heavier and heavier as sweat washed over her face. She needed to get out. "Mijina, where are you? You're smarter than this." Her throat burned from the heat. She'd suffocate if she stayed in the camp any longer. She dashed out to the nearest clearing she could find. Tears trickled down her maw. Her vision became blurry at the sight of the burning camp. "Mijina, I know you're alive. You're going to grow up big, strong, and brave like her mother." Naya sank to her knees and hugged her wounded gut. She spoke out. "Until then, I taught you better than this. You should have been with our allies." A gentle breeze washed across her fur until it suddenly howled into a roaring wind. The gusts of wind ignited the fires around the camp into a harsh burst of flames. The heat slapped across Naya's face and staggered her. Enraged, Naya hissed out in pain while scrapping at the embers that burnt her face. She aimlessly trailed away from the encampment while she regained her vision. She stopped dead in her tracks as she collided with the tree. Ah! Channeling her rage in a balled-up fist, she swiped at the tree and took a hefty chunk out of it. She glared up toward the wooden shrapnel as it flew into the distance. To her distinct surprise, she spotted something mangling her vision of the wooden debris, a volley of arrows. A dozen arrows were scattered about around the tree. Curiosity got the better of the lioness. It made no sense for this area to be a target range for the perils. But could it be that? Naya sprung to her toes and paced over to the arrows. She distanced her attention from the arrows as her eyes gawked in astonishment. Footprints! They were small in comparison to everyone else. They had to be Megina's. Bro, she's dead, bro. Her head snapped to the forest and she cried out, "Megina!" Clutching her wounds, she hobbled into the forest with her sight on her daughter's tracks. "Megina, Megina," she roared her name, ignoring the pain in her gut every time she yelled. The pain was a price she'd happily have paid just to see her daughter. Moments went on and the tracks led to a dead end. Naya frantically sniffed around, searching every angle the tracks had ended at. She feared the worst when she caught the scent of a familiar metallic odor. Blood. That's blood. Let me just drink more water. Alright. Naya shooed away the fear as she stumbled upon claw marks leading up a tree. She circled the tree and glared up in desperation for any sight of Megina. She finally spots something. A tail! That was all the evidence she needed. She leapt up into the tree and sinks her claws into the rough bark. She hurled herself from one branch to another before finally... Megina! Oh, she's dead. Megina laid up against the tree. Her clothes were tattered and torn. She wouldn't wake up. Naya gently shook the little cub's leg. "Megina, wake up. I'm here." She felt cold to the touch. She's dead. Oh my god, this is a fucking fever dream. You can't fucking tell me it would have been an infighting if that happened, right? The tree branch groaned underneath Naya's feet during her reunion. Her quivering legs sent tremors in the wood till it finally snapped. Naya pulled and held her daughter to her chest as they fell. She curled herself around Megina, hitting numerous branches down. She hit the ground with an impactful thud to her arm. Oh! She slowly pulled herself up while hugging Megina tenderly to her lap. Bro, this is fucked up, bro. This is fucked up. This is a fuckity fucky fuck situation here. Sorry for the harsh words, but Sleepy I ain't sugarcoating this. This is war right here. Megina, you awake, sweetie? She ran her fingers through the cub's hair, hoping her loving coos would ease her awake. She rested her head on top of Megina's, gently rocking her back and forth in her lap, and whispered, Wake up, sweetie. Please." She gripped Megina's body tighter into her embrace while she stroking her back. Her back was wet to the touch. Tears welled up in her eyes. Her heart pounded in her chest as if fear itself tried to strangle it from her chest. Naya hesitated before lifting her paw. Her singed fur stained crimson. She felt dizzy. A sickly knot begins to swell in her as the scent of blood surged to her nose. Her nauseated gaze soon found itself on Megina's back. A broken arrow had embedded itself into her. Naya, lost for words, couldn't bring herself to bear the ugly truth before her. No. Her breathing unwavered. No! Megina, please, don't! She's dead, bro. She's dead. She sank forward, clutching her daughter's lifeless corpse. Please. Please don't. Her claws brushed through the back of Megina's hair, hugging her face to her throbbing chest. Her heart was ready to burst. She wheezed out a heart-stricken roar. Yeah, Sleepy ain't gonna roar, fam. Her thunderous roar shook the trees. The forest trembled. The wildfire from the encampment was slowly making its way to her. The exhausted lioness ignored the events around her. The precious world she harbored in her arms was snuffed out from her life. All that was left was sorrow. She was to fight for the lords of the court, to win battles in the names of others that her family might live comfortably. But this wasn't what she planned. She thought she could take on an empire. She thought she could save her people. She thought she could rely on her allies. She was wrong. She couldn't take it. She couldn't bear the thought. She couldn't live in this world without her baby. Naja curled into a ball with her child, held dearly to her breast as she freely sobbed. Please, don't do this to me. She would have torn apart worlds to have been with Megina in her final breaths, to have just one last moment with her. I guess don't we all? To have one last moment with our families, with our good relationship, with our families that we have good relationship with, of course. If you're father, mother, brother, uncle, or sister, or whatever, I don't know what old you are. You have a shitty relationship with them, like they're horrible people. I get it. Like why would I give a fuck, right? She held her daughter's limp paws while continuing to groom her. Tears flowed down and Naja would lick them clean from where they wetted. Megina, she adorned her sweet daughter's scent as if she were still alive. Naja gently lifted up her cold paws and kissed the tops endearingly. She didn't want to let go. Her baby went alone in the dark, cold and afraid. She nuzzled her face into the cub's palm and softly kissing it, but her scent was muskier. Her heart skipped a beat at the oddity. She lifted her daughter's paw up into view, now realizing it was balled up in a fist. Her tears seized with all attention, hung over the cub's paw. She slowly unbundled Megina's fingers and beheld a bloodied mess. Her claws were scuffed with blood and held a large spindle of brown fur. Her heart skipped another beat, and another, until her whole body began to fidget uncontrollably. She recognized the fur and must. It was an ugly truth she couldn't bring herself to admit yet before, but it was escaping it now. Her vision flashed back to Crom and his scar. Her mind's eye witnessed the scar glow harshly, redder before it became blinding. The fear she had restrained had finally broke free. Its devastating gravity pulled her mind into an abysmal reality, a reality she needed to face. Her world became bleaker with all of the colors fading from the world. The blazing fire overtaking the forest was swiftly snuffed out from the coming dark. The dreadful dark reality she held back in her mind finally bled into being. The world around her blackened, leaving nothing but pitch darkness and a forest decor in flames. The burning trees instantaneously burst into ash, like a monsoon. Oh wait, no. I read that wrong. I read that incorrectly. Like a monsoon, the ash hammered toward Naja from every direction. Naja held her paws over her face, trying to block the heated dust from blinding her eyes. She hissed in pain every time she dared to peer out. The heat overwhelmed her and her blood began to boil. Her palms sweat, her knees are weak and arms heavy. Mom spaghetti, vomit on her sweater already. I'm sorry, I had to do that. Her palms sweat and throbbed to the beat of a racing heart. Her ears were deafened by the roaring winds. The thunderous, hot winds felt as though they'd burst her ears, but they stopped. Her body felt numb. Neither wind nor heat brushed over her. She slowly opened her eyes. The howling winds froze before her, yet out of the corner of her eyes, the ash would dance wildly from her view. Every time she tried to catch it, the dust would freeze in place and continue on out of the crease of her gaze. Naja frantically tried to catch the movement, snapping her head back and forth until her head began to feel dizzy. Yet every time her vision snapped from one side to another, she started to see shapes form within the ash. The shapes slowly morphed into a crowd of familiar people. Her people. The ash sculpted itself into the scene of her tribe, conversing and at peace with the Imperials. None of them bared any faces, but to her, she could tell they were happy. The haunting winds picked up and fear feathered the ashen figures away to the winds with a sound of laughter and music wafting to the breath. She carried her gaze to where the wind drifted to the ash too. It reshaped into a cluster of her people and Imperials gathered around the dinner table. They were all content with each other. No anger or spite was shared between them. Is it the sound of the loud familiar bellowing horn? It was her allies. They were ambushed. The Imperials snapped at her people. Both sides were confused. The Imperials attack while her people retaliate in self-defense. All the while in the distance, a grisly figure on horseback sounded the bellowing horn once more, his own army charging forward. The ash burst once more, carrying the groaning horn to the wind. The ash takes form once more, this time taking form of everything she denied herself of seeing before. Her people had been slaughtered by fear-mongering Imperials. All the while, Osep Knights picked off the stragglers. Red-hot embers sizzled from the figure's wounds and burst into flames. The fires soon settled into a mound of ash, into a mound of ash with Crom and his men at the peak. At the slump of the mound rests a figure of her own. Megina laid next to her side while a wounded Xatu hunched over her. The ash shifted with Crom raising a fist, and two Losep lancers materialized and charged down towards Xatu. One lancer impaled Xatu and flung him off his lance, but not before snatching the wolf's sword from his limp grip. The second lancers charged towards Megina and snatched her off her feet. The lion cub fiercely tried to claw her way free while being escorted back up the mound. The first lancer trotted back to her body, circling it before taking Xatu's sword and embedding it into her gut. Yo, that's fucked up. The ash burned redder as it burst into flames and reshaped into a towering Crom holding Megina by the scruff of her neck. Megina broke free from his grip and swiped the burning red gash across his muzzle. The embers grew brighter across the ashen Crom. Megina zipped across the field, but she couldn't find safety anywhere. Crom's archer raised his bow at the lion cub and let loose his string. The snap of the bow shattered the ash around her and brought her mind back to reality. The truth of the matter branded itself to her mind. Everything she'd ignored up until now seared into her mind. Her heavy gaze was now fixated solely at the encampment.